keep things in files. So unless citizens arise, citizens say do something, these people don't respect institutions. And I don't know, because, like for example, what happened in northern Uganda. I've told about somebody called Ogwen. I don't know whether about this Lord Resistance Army. It's because Museveni wanted those people to go there to be taken to ICC. But if Museveni do these violations, it has been documented. There's enough evidence. It has been taken to ICC. Who will arrest Museveni and take Museveni to ICC? And that's the reason why, because there's nobody who can take Museveni to ICC. What do we do? It's upon citizens themselves to arise and do something. So the back lay with the citizens. Let those institutions just help us in amplifying, but the back lay with the citizens. That's the way I know about those institutions, although they are good. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade. I think I cannot get Comrade Award. He must be having challenges with network. So, Comrade Okos, before you leave that should you throw more light about the ICC and its role in this sense, and under what circumstances is ICC engaged or reached out to?
With the cases of ICC, let's say, for example, there's violations that are taking place. Justice system in a country is not working well. You know, and there's people have documented, like the way you're talking about documentation violation that's going on, and we can use these instruments like I've talked about special rapporteurs. Those are enough evidence that can be taken to ICC, and ICC. I don't know the mechanism that's being done well. It's because that's a topic by itself. How people are supposed to be taken. Because, for example, what happened in Uganda with the Lord Resistance Army is the government that collected all, did the documentation, and they presented it to, I don't know, that's the president of ICC. Then they took, I don't know, that guy called, I don't know, his name is, I don't know whether it's Gwen. They took him to ICC. So also the government did documentation. And because they're not even able to arrest the guy, so it was part of ICC, because ICC has no power to arrest. It is the country that has to arrest that person. So it was easy for I don't know if his name is Ogwen to be arrested because the country was ready to arrest him. But let's say, for example, if it's Museveni that's being wanted by ICC, who'll arrest Museveni? Like, for example, there was happened that somebody from Congo was taken to ICC. I've forgotten its name, a rebel, because the government was ready to arrest the person and be taken to ICC. But if it's a government, there's really violation. Who will arrest that person to take to ICC? So the issue of how to take someone to ICC is I don't know much about it, but it's also something that people need to learn about, because it's a crime against humanity, you know, and it's something to be a crime to be a crime against humanity. It's a lot of documentation that has to be done, you know. So, for example, if there is a lot of let's say, crime against humanity, genocide, you know, and chasing away people from their land, you know, when people are being chased away from their land, those are all because a matter of documentation, and it can be presented to UN Special Rapporteur, and then it can be taken to president of ICC. Then the president can see that has it reached the threshold to be taken to International Criminal Court. But the problem is that ICC does not have power to arrest. So maybe, for example, that Museveni has done a genocide. Who will arrest Museveni? Maybe it's Kagame who has done this. Unless after maybe he has left power and another regime comes in, a friendly regime, then it can be arrested. Like the what happened in, I think it was in Sierra Leone. This Sierra Leone. It's another regime that arrested the person. So it depends. So it's about citizens. It's about citizens to have power. It's after citizens to have power. I think that's the way I can take it about. But ICC is good because there are some people who have also they were jailed by ICC. So let's hope the way Museveni is behaving in Uganda in the future, although you might think that he's so a superhero, I'm telling you, a regime can come in Uganda and what has been documented will be taken to ICC, and the guy will be, because most of African countries, their judicial system, their judiciary, uh, are not well, are not good. So that's the reason why people are taking people to ICC. And like, for example, in Kenya here, we had a post-election violence in 2007. So because Kenyans didn't trust our judicial system, so we had to take these people to ICC. Although they did some things. They left they when they're taken to ICC, they did their things and they left the hook. They were left alone like that. So I tend to think these things live with the system. When you see them as citizens, we've seen that there's violations and we have facts. It's upon us to rise up and remove that government. That's the only language that is there. If we depend so much on these institutions, you see, they just condemn and write so many letters. We condemn the strong term possible, but yes, condemning and somebody is there. Yeah? You see, for example, Museveni is being condemned every now and then, but the guy is still ruled Uganda since 1986. Election after election, the guy is still there. You see, and condemning. You see, you find that Museveni here in Uganda. If you go to Belarus there, you find that guy in Belarus, someone just is there. Yeah? That's the reason why I like the people of Sudan. Sudan, they said, no, enough is enough. This guy has to go home. And the Bashir went home. Because they cannot even depend on ICC. So the back lay with the citizenry who are empowered. They say this is wrong, you have to go, like the way they did in Tunisia, Algeria. So although what you're documenting is good, but what you're documenting can inform the next struggle. But we should not depend so much on what UPR is saying. They just condemn it and saying we condemn as much as possible. We condemn this and this, and the violation just continue. So when they've condemned as citizenry, let us do something. Let us organize ourselves. There's nobody who will come from outside. There's no Jesus will come from top and save us. Because people are saying that we are condemning it. Maybe they just want to massage our ego, and they're working with the same system. Sometimes I don't even trust those bodies because those bodies are the one that are supporting this regime. You see, like for example, we don't have weapons. Things that are being used to kill people. Those weapons are not being made here in Africa. They're the same people who are saying that they're fighting for human rights there, maybe in Europe, and the same people who are supporting this regime. And even also when you're documenting, we need to also to be very careful because uh, they want us to do this documentation to understand the way things are. Maybe they're working with the government, the same government. Our thinking. Well, how do we think? Sometimes what you're documenting, it should be for our own consumption, not to give somebody else. Let us document for our own consumption. Because you're documenting and giving somebody else, and then that person can use it against you. So let us also document for our own consumption, so that we can fight for our rights. It's not necessary that we have to document so that we give somebody else. How do you know the relationship between that somebody else that we're giving and this person that's with the regime? Let's document for our own consumption. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that insight, Comrade Okoth. I can see Comrade Awad now seems he has stabilized. Comrade Awad, I must believe you must have been noting a number of questions which were pushed to you despite the fact that you couldn't connect with us. I'll try to hand over the floor to you, Comrade Awad, to say something around the developing questions. Comrade Awad, the floor is yours. Again, I must have lost Comrade Awad. Comrade Awad, you may try to stabilize with your network. Well, Comrade Okoth, you cite a very paramount issue, which we agree to. But then we are trying to find a way, like you talked about cooperation, like you talked about people organizing on ground and try to push for this cause. But then we are trying to look at situations, for example, we know if we can weaken this regime, for example, economically, then we are good to go at a certain level. But it worries a lot. For example, when we continue to see the same people who have condemned the violations in Uganda, the following day to continue to associate with same perpetrators. But we have seen circumstances where, for example, these dictators are even limited to move beyond their countries. That's one way our dictators are weakened. And for example, when he come back to Museveni himself, lately he would hardly move out of the country unless of recent where he's trying to mend his relationship with the international actors. We must have seen that. He's trying really to cleanse a lot that had been reported and so on and so forth. But these violations are continuing to go. I think just it changes the style that which he can use to continue silencing the people who come to rise, who come to protest, who come to mobilize and organize against his leadership. That even right now is afraid of seeing any opposition people, activists doing, for example, fundraisers to support these causes and so on and so forth. So it is critical that we cannot undermine the part being played by the international community in sustaining his leadership. So now we are asking, how do we try to neutralize or try to weaken this? That Museveni, who was afraid of moving out of the country, today moves out. That means that really his relationship is trying to bring back the healthy relationship with these international actors. But all the atrocities he has committed has not been he has not accounted for them, and he continues to do the same thing. So that's the aspect we are looking at it. Much as now there is this bit of self-organizing on the ground and something of that sort. But if those relations continue to grow healthier, even when these atrocities are continuing to go on the ground, that is something worrying much. For example, how I've shown you how he moves out, how he's continuing to receive a lot of aid and so something, how he's continuing to receive the firearms and the support to his security, majorly to silence, which he uses to silence the people, to disperse assemblies, disperse gatherings, to which and all of those who do not agree in the direction. But we believe that as we organize on the ground, we can also try to tap from the other side as a way of awakening uh, uh, is dictatorship. Because as you can see today, you really see is trying to mend everything from that side, despite that continues to pursue or to partake the same acts he has done previously. So um, those are the circumstances we're trying to look at. That how can they be forced to be in a place that yes, this Museveni man can even be afraid of moving out of the country. Those are indicators that the man is weakening. Uh, so I'm trying to look at the circumstances under which this can be pushed to be in place, using the atrocities and the so many things this man has committed. You may comment around that, Comrade Okoth. Comrade Okoth, the floor is yours.
Thank you again. Although I did not get it clearly because there is I don't know, maybe there's a problem with the with the line. But what I can say is that let us use this documentation. Because I'm always against this issue of condemnation. International community are condemned. Let them condemn, but condemn because they've gotten information or they've gotten what they've documented they have there. Let them condemn, but we should act ourselves. Let us act ourselves. Because the issue of massaging our ego, you know, like what happened, you know, because the latest example that what happened in that time was in Uganda, in Arua. You see, international community just condemned. You see, it was documented. 12 people were killed, just condemning. You know, uh, we condemn the strongest terms possible. How does it change? You know, you know, maybe Universal Periodic Review has said that there are so many violations that happen in Uganda. Uh, what does it change? Those are the questions that citizens need also to ask themselves. Because, you know, this is also international. Because as citizens, we need to critique uh, these bodies. You know, people are suffering. You know, people are, atrocities are going on. You see, by just saying that we condemn without taking some actions, you know, me, I believe in action, not just saying that we condemn, then you go and sleep. You condemn and do something. Either you condemn and say that our relation between this country and Uganda is no longer there. We recall our ambassador. We start to take them serious. How can somebody condemn and yet your ambassador is still there? Yeah? Sometimes this issue of condemning, although it can make us, it can make us feel happy, but the situation is not changing. Yeah? Atrocities are still continuing going on, violation and abuses. You know, so when this international community is saying that we are condemning, they should do some action. Because, for example, in Uganda, there has been so many atrocities that have been done, and we have seen so many statements coming, but those statements are not changing anything. They're not changing anything. Life is just the way it was. Atrocities are going to continuing. So sometimes, although they are our allies and they're speaking what's happening, they should take action. You know, when they're saying that they're condemning what has happened in Uganda, maybe when we were talking about what happened, I don't know, October, what date, they condemn, and they're the same people who are giving this regime weapons and everything. So we should also need to be, we should be critiquing also these people. Eh? They should just be condemned for the sake of condemning, for the sake of massaging our ego. Let them condemn and take action. You see, I'm not saying that they come and, but they have to do something. Like, for example, sanctioning. Let's say, for example, you know, there's a continued war between Russia and Ukraine. You see, the West are really making sanction against Putin, and we're seeing the impact of those sanctions. So when it's happening here in Africa, we are not seeing that impact. Yeah, you know, you see, there's in Russia, you see that they're taking the properties of oligarchs. They're doing such kind of things. Why does it not happen here in Africa? Yeah, because this violation is going on. We need the international community to take action the way they're taking action against Russia. They're taking action against Putin. They're taking actions against the oligarchs. This one will not buy your petrol, will not do this. But for there, when atrocities is happening here in Kenya, what's happening in Uganda, they'll just say with their mouth, they are condemning this, but business as usual. Life is just continuing as usual. So international community should also change the way they are doing the things. As citizens, we need to tell them the truth. We need to tell them with their own eyes that what you are, you know, this condemnation that you are saying is not changing things. Things are just normal. Murder has been normalized, just continuing on. Like, for example, you know, what you had in Swaziland. It is very sad, although we did some actions, but Muswati is still there. There's no sanction for international community. They are condemning, but they're still working. They're still working with the regime of Muswati. You see, Ramaphosa of South Africa is still working with Muswati. So sometimes, you know, we can document, but unless citizenry do something, it can be very, very difficult. Let us not keep a lot of hopes for these international communities and international institutions. It's for us to fight for ourselves. And that's also what I'm saying. When you're documenting, we can give them, but let us document for our own consumption. We document so that you see something is wrong. So let us fight for our own. Let us fight for ourselves. But if so much depending on the on the on the on the on the on the on the, on the it's like when the community depends so much on it's like philanthropy. When here in Kenya, there's a road that comes from Nairobi to a place called Nakuru. There's a city called Nakuru. In between Nakuru and Nairobi, there is a park where you can see a lot of baboons. Because those baboons are so used so much to, when passerby are passing with their vehicle, they usually give them bananas, food, cake. So we realize that those baboons no longer go to the bush there to look for food. So you realize that those baboons have become even weaker because they don't fight for every morning they wake up, they come alongside the road, alongside the highway, because there's what called dependency syndrome. They depend. So for us also, we should not behave like those baboons. We need to fight for ourselves. So let us do documentation. And sometimes this documentation, that's the reason why you see this documentation is being done by the same West. The West, they should come do this documentation. I don't know whether they're studying, and sometimes we don't even trust this documentation. Unless it's us ourselves for that documentation, they're really using a lot of money to come and document. You see, they're giving organizations, they're giving Amnesty International money to do documentation. If they're doing documentation, what next? It's the way for today's topic is called what next? Because they are doing a lot of documentation and they're using a lot of money. They pour a lot of money in this country to do documentation. Where are they taking those things? They're just starting a country, and I don't know whether sometimes they want to do documentation, then they see what you can do. I don't know whether they're weighing our power. Sometimes this documentation with this, that's the reason why we have to localize this documentation at times. Because it also happened here in Kenya. Organizations that are doing documentation, you find that they pour a lot of money doing documentation on extrajudicial killings. Sometimes I wonder, what next? We need to ask us, what next? What are they going to do with this? Because they're taking those. I don't know, they're taking university in the Netherlands. I don't know whether it's Norway. They keep it in there. They're going to do it and study. So sometimes I wonder, why are they pouring a lot of money in documentation? And they don't want to change the situation the way it is. Those are the questions these children have to ask themselves. They're doing documentation and life has not changed. Like, for example, here in Kenya, there's a lot to be of extrajudicial killings in informal settlements. So realize that there's so many universities are coming here pouring money, doing documentation, extrajudicial killings, but those killings are just continuing. So you see, there's no change. So sometimes I'm wondering, this documentation, is it a real documentation or just people are joking with us? Yeah? And let's come and tell this government, why are you killing people? These are your weapons. These are weapons that are selling to you. If you're killing our people, we shall no longer sell you these guns. So sometimes also, we need to ask people coming to do documentation here, what are you going to do with those documentation? Because it's not right to come and do documentation, then you go and put in those what you've documented in your files, and then come and sit back and look. It's also not right. So also people who are come and do documentation here in Africa, in Uganda, in Kenya, we need to question them. Yes, they have come and interviewed me about violations that are being done by the system. Then what next? It's also upon us to ask ourselves, because they usually come. They usually pour a lot of money in this organization, this mainstream civil society. They document, then they go. So they also don't genuine. So we as citizens, when you're fighting, we also need to question these people. Although they are allies, but we need to question them. For how many years have they documented what's happening in Uganda? They've really documented them. They're going to take them, they're taking them to Europe, they're taking to universities. It's being learned in universities there. But the situation is still remains the same. So as citizens, we need also to unmask this documentation that's being done to our country, that it's not even changing. It's not even changing. It's not even changing anything. Those are the things that we need as organizers to understand. We cannot allow them just to come and document just for the sake of documenting. We want documentation that can bring change, not just documentation for the sake of documentation. That's what I can say about also these people were coming and document. Although documenting is not bad. That's the way I'm feeling. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Okoth. Comrade Howard, seems your network is still poor. I see joining and then you continue breaking off. I don't know. You can kindly try to stabilize. Yeah. So, Comrade Okoth, this is really powerful and a critical conversation which we are having today. Literally this tries to draw us to the international community, which literally has vested interests in some of these countries, most especially Africa and among others. So we cannot underestimate them. But then I also now look at another aspect like using the documentation as a bait to target the international actors. That if they really speak about human rights, they speak about freedom and democracy within these countries and beyond. So I'm looking at using the documentations as a bait that this is something you have gathered as the organizers or the activists. Then you submit it to these bodies. Then they don't respond, obviously, as we identified earlier. But then you try now to organize around that very issue, now targeting these actors who continue to support these perpetrators, the way you talked about, for example, the weapons and everything and so on and so forth. So you have documented everything. It is clear that the supplies Museveni is using, for example, from maybe Israel, maybe from United States, and then you document these violations and then you submit to these bodies where these are member states, where some of these people have that power to take action, but they don't take action. And then now you come back, you use that same thing as a bait to demand for action from these, because literally some have, for example, missions and embassies within these countries. I would want to have your comment in that aspect before we go to our audience. I'm seeing some having something to share. I'm also seeing Comrade Awad trying to stabilize. Yeah, Comrade Julius, over to you.
Uh, what I can say about documentaries is very important. Uh, let let documentation continue, uh, and let this documentation should be for our own consumption. Let us, you know, when systems are organized, what we've documented we can use to fight against the enemy. And that's the reason why, although when you're taking to I don't know, this documentation maybe uh, let's say the Western international community can use it when they want. We see when they can use that what has documented for the selfish interest, not for the sake of the people. So this documentation should be used for a change to change the way the government is governed. Not that documentation is being done to satisfy interest or stuff. You know, let's say for example, uh, people can document what the violation is going on in Uganda, but what have been documented can it just put in a library or in a file somewhere. So you see that those document what they documented when they want to satisfy their interests. That's when they'll use that, not because of citizens, people who have been violated, but when they want to satisfy their interest. So people document also change their mindset. Documentation should be about people. Documentation should be about to change or reform for the benefit of the people. Not that people document so that it can satisfy the interest of a certain people. It's about people. It's about people-centered. You know, not to document, then you put in a certain library so that you can use it in the future for a certain, because Now I'm no longer interested with Museveni. Now is this the time that I can produce what has been documented? Immediately they get it has been documented. Let them act. You know, uh, maybe it is Congo. Uh, violation is going on in Congo. They just keep quiet unless, if they're in good terms with that regime, they'll not do anything about what it has been documented. Let what has been documented be used to change the way the system that is oppressing the people. Let there be change. Let there be reform. But if it's being documented just for the sake of documentation and it stays there, the documentation it will not have any helpful. It will not have. It will not be. It will not be. It will not be useful to people. You know, like for example, that uh, they have documented. They have taken to University Periodic Review. If there is no change that's being done, what is the process of documentation? So documentation is about come and change. And sometimes that's the reason why I believe in a direct action. You know, change is now. You know, we should not come. You know, there's some things that we call the piecemeal reforms. You know, me, I'm not a believer in peace. This something called peaceful. These piecemeal reforms. You know, when there is violation, let the person who has done this be removed. You know, issue of coming up. No, let's have a piecemeal changes, piecemeal changes, piecemeal changes. You know, as people, when you have been violated, we need. That's the reason why I believe in a revolution. You know, a change should have to come quickly. You know, violations happened in Uganda since 1986, but people are talking about. No, we need reforms. Reforms. I'm not for those kind of reforms things. So this documentation should be the final product of it should be about change and for the benefit of the people. If it cannot benefit the people, then documentation will become useless. It has no meaning. So let documentation be for the people and benefit the people. Let it bring change. If it cannot bring change, because people will be wasting a lot of time, you know, every year. There's a report about Universal Periodic Review. Uganda is this number, you know, like this number. It's like here in Kenya because issue of corruption. Every time we're saying that Kenya's number this in corruption is number, you know, those are just becomes those are just songs, and it will continue and it will be normalized. You know, we need when there's documented and there's a review has been done. Action should must be taken. Why are they taking action in other countries but not Africa? So those are the things that international community must understand, and they have to be told about it because uh, people not to be taken serious with this documentation. If there's no action being taken, people will not take the international community seriously unless something happens. Like for example, here in Kenya, you know, during a multi-party, when Kenya was a single party, I remember I was very young at that time. There was an American ambassador called Hempston. That because they really wanted Kenya to have to be a multi-party state. Ambassador himself used to come to the street, eh? And change came. Eh? Change came. Change really came because there was documentation that President Moore used to torture people, such kind of thing. So the guy came to the street. So international community must be in forefront, not just a matter of saying that we condemn, we condemn, we condemn. Because by saying we condemn, they also it looks as if they are comfortable with the rogue regime that is there. So it's upon us also as citizens. We need to also tell international community that they should change the way they're handling issues. They're handling the rogue regimes that in Africa. There are so many rogue regimes in Africa here. You know, corruption is going on. People are documenting. Protests are going. People are being killed. It's being documented. Then, if it is being documented, what's the usefulness of of documentation if there's no change? And that's why I'm still insisting on it should be for our own concern. Let's document so that we can take action. You see, but if at all we depend on that, oh, our country is number this in a universal periodic review, and it will just be there. It's like being in the Olympic. You are just there, but there's nothing. So we need to take action as citizens, and as citizens, if we continue to be proactive and extra vigilant, I don't think we'll need those things. I think as citizens we can fight for ourselves. Citizens who are informed, citizens who are empowered. So we need to be empowered, and that's the reason last time I was talking about a people-led, people-powered kind of documentation. Because if we leave this documentation to other people, I don't think change will come. Let us consume those whatever we've documented. So international community can just help us in amplifying and the usual condemnation. Let them continue condemning, but citizens must act. We should come with tactics now can change a system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Okoth. I must believe we have looked at uh, the the international scale, then we looked at the regional scale, and then we looked at the role which these actors, the different actors at the international scale and the regional scale have to play, and in this after documentation of these violations. Yeah. Now, as we try to wrap up, I would love us to just draw an insight to the local scale, to the people who are going to organize that. Yeah, we document, everyone documents. It's a people powered, people led documentation. Then they have the data, yes. So how is this data later used? Maybe to cause outrage, maybe to ignite action in that sense. So having these findings at the end of the day are very sensitive findings, most especially regarding to extrajudicial killings, maybe forced disappearances, and so on and so forth. Very sensitive information on that has been collected. So how do these citizens now move forward in organizing, but still using this documentation as a pillar to mobilize and organize and ignite action at the end of the day? Over to you, Comrade Okoth.
Uh, I think this documenting can inform our next step, because, for example, that uh, a certain violation or abuses happened somewhere. If we document and other people knows about it, when community, everybody, it can create a certain what we call outrage, and that one can make people to come with to act. It can make people to act. So we act locally, and also we have solidarity from other allies from outside. So it's good also to when we have document, documentation is good, because when it has a document, especially if it is a documentary, something that has been seen, maybe it's a visual, it can make somebody angry. When people are angry, people can act. So it depends on what kind of documentation that I've done. So it depends with how have you documented it, because there's some documentation when I see, I I just become angry myself, you know. I just become angry myself. It's like, for example, nowadays I consult with a certain organization called the Domimbe Network. So we usually document, there's some rich areas in Nairobi where the rich people lives. People don't know that in those rich suburbs, there are a lot of violations that's going on. People don't know. People always think of informal settlements within Nairobi, but that organization is about is of women domestic workers. There's some women domestic workers uh, who work informally in those rich areas. They are being paid per day. So in that organization, I usually help them how to document violation, because so many violations, especially issues like rape, is happening in those homesteads. Uh, an issue of salary, gender-based violence, such kind of things. So, when you're documenting, when I help those women to document what's happening, documenting and take it to the police station, they have a report, and they have an what do you call it? We call it here. Can you call it when you report to police called OB, uh, occurrence book? That is a reporting occurrence book. Uh, it can help in the future to amplify and know that what's happening in rich suburbs, because most people don't know what's happening in rich suburbs. Women are being raped, especially women we call them mamafua. Women who go and wash clothes there. You can go there because they have it's a gated community, a closed community. Violation can happen there without coming out. So we usually urge those women, come and say what you have seen and what has happened to you. Go and go and report to the police station what has happened to you. So when you have documented enough case, you have enough case. Now we can amplify and do some action. So they'll say in this rich area, uh, there's a lot of violation that's happening. There's a lot of gender-based violence that's happening. So documentation is very critical. I don't deny that it's very critical because it can inform and ignite. So documentation informs and it ignites, and it can bring change. People, uh, especially when you have data, this what has happened. This happened this date. This happened this date. It creates anger. So I tend to think, and also people are documenting. Uh, because nowadays documentation is like a gold mine, and that's the reason why people are in Western countries, universities, always come. So people nowadays find that what have been documented is becoming a data. Data is a gold mine, uh, because it can bring a revolution. So people know, when people know that you're collecting data, you're doing research and collecting data on such an issue, maybe gender-based violence, maybe police brutality, such kind of things. It's a gold mine, and they know, the system knows. When you're documenting the data that you're coming up with, it can bring change, it can bring a revolution, especially when it comes out. It can bring anger, it can bring outrage. So that's the reason I'm saying that when community, and I'd like to see in the future where each and every community can able, each and every person, no matter whom you are in a community or society, you can able document. And that's why the countries like America is a way ahead of us. Like, for example, what happened to during the time of George Floyd, if you can remember, that guy who was killed by police officers. It was just ordinary citizens. Maybe he was a passerby. He had a camera and he documented what was happening. And you see what happened? The whole country was with these protests of Black Lives Matter. It's because just a single citizen documented. It doesn't mean that, let's say, for example, that someone documented what happened to George Floyd, then he was waiting that what I've documented, I can take it to the Universal Tour, then you go to Universal Periodic Review. Sometimes, it can be an impromptu. Documentation is not necessarily there just to go to Universal. You document and maybe put it on the social media, put it in whatever forms that people can see, and action can be there. For George Floyd, the Americans don't wait, the Black Americans did not wait for Universal Periodic Review. They just took an action immediately. So sometimes citizens need to have knowledge of documenting. When you're working with the camera, because nowadays everybody have an Android phone. We're seeing the violations going on. Just document, and if it's necessary, if you find that it's not risk for you, just put it out. People and the people take action. We don't need to wait for Universal Periodic Review to make us take action. So expect that every citizen know how to document and amplify. Although the tools that we have, the platforms that we're having, it's not ours. It's for corporate world. Things like Twitter is not ours. Facebook is not ours. But we need to use those capitalist platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and other social media platforms to amplify. Because when you're amplifying, so people, we should not expect that documenting is only what you have documented take it to certain organization, you know, just amplifying what you have seen and put in your social media platform. That's the documentation. Even media people who are journalists, they usually do documentation. They document and amplify. We have got so many ways of amplifying. So amplifying is not only to take it to the Universal Periodic Review. There are so many channels of taking what we have documented, not necessarily to UN Special Rapporteur or to those institutions like UN, that Universal Periodic Review. So we need to understand where can we take what we have documented. The reason why I like so much, I like researchers of course, the Human Rights Watch has so many. I think in every country they have their own researchers, and I urge every human rights defenders or activist to know each and every researcher of Human Rights Watch in their own country. Because here in Kenya, also I've got a friend who's a researcher with the Human Rights Watch here in Kenya. He's a friend of mine. Anytime I see anything, I usually consult him. Anytime I have his phone number, anytime I have anything, an issue of violations going on, I usually contact him. So we need to have those people, their contacts, and build rapport with them. So I urge every human rights defender, every activist to have those people, have numbers of UN Special Rapporteur, have and these researchers of Human Rights Watch, and also here in Kenya. I don't know whether they're in Uganda. This is what you call this other organization called the Peace Brigade International (PBI). They're here in Kenya. They usually work with the human rights defenders whenever they are doing their work. So it's upon us now to make as HRDs, human rights defenders, as activists, as community organizers, to have contacts of special rapporteurs, contacts of researchers of Human Rights Watch. So those are the tools. Having those contacts are tools, and most people don't know that those are tools. Having contacts of those people are tools, and we need to have them so that our documentation can become easier. Because sometimes you cannot, it's not yourself you can report, but somebody can report on your behalf. That's where I feel about documentation, and so that's where ordinary citizens can come in. If you do not document, but know people are responsible, maybe you know a media person, investigative journalist, and such kind of things. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Comrade. Of course, I think that wraps it up. I must believe now we have an insight, and here the people are here, and those who listen in later, on what needs to be done on an international level, at the regional level, and then the local level. I think starts can start from the local level to the regional to the international. Either way, but what is very important is that there is a role which the people have to play in influencing other actors in taking direction, be it solidarity actions and allies and so on and so forth. I thank you so much, Comrade Okoth, for that insight. I think it is very important. This clarifies on the part played by these international actors, be it the region, and what the people need to do to influence either sides to target these actors as well as they target the perpetrators. I think it's very important to target either sides, to have actions targeting either sides, so that at the end of the day, we can overwhelm the system. I will open up this floor to our people in here in case of any question, in case of any comment, in case of any supplement about what has been discussed. I'll open up the floor in case there is. I totally failed to get Comrade Award. I must believe his network is apparently very low. In case there is anyone with any question, comment, please feel free to ask. You can request for the mic, and shall really give you the floor. Well, I'm seeing Comrade Award. Hope this time we can get you. Yes, over to you, Comrade Award. Still, I've lost you, Comrade Award. I believe your network has failed us today to hear a lot from you. But always we have you here, Comrade Award. You can always share uh, these packages and information you may have. Let me give it a try. Yes, Comrade Award. Comrade Award, we can't get him. Okay, in case there is no any other, let me have you, Comrade Okot, just give us some few closing remarks and we shall wrap it up here today. Thank you so much to all those who have tuned in, those who come tune in and then and so on. So we believe later people will be able to find what we have discussed here to listen in. Over to you, Comrade Okot, as we wind up.
Thank you. What I'd like to say is that uh, uh, the next step is after documentation uh, is to take action. Uh, we should not document so that you can lament. We don't document to lament. We document to take action. So whether it has been it is in universal periodic review, uh, if it a country has been mentioned, a president has been mentioned, let us take action. Although even a change cannot be a big change, but a change is a change. So whatever is documented, let it be ignite or inform our action. And as we continue to document, uh, let us continue because networks with the people who are responsible, like UN Special Protocol. Let us have their numbers in whatever sector you are, whether you are in the LGBTQ community, whether you are a freedom of right to assemble, whether you are extrajudicial killings, such kind. So let us create because our in the documentation, our network is our net worth because we have power through that. Have numbers of contacts of human rights watch researchers within your country. Have numbers of UN Special Rapporteur. Have make rapport with the rapport with foreign mission. Those are the people who can help in documentation because those are the only people who can help, especially in times of sometimes documentation can become a risk, and you might need to maybe to run away, you might need to go to exile, and those are the people who can help you. So uh, let us do documentation when you are very focused, when you have networks, and at the same time when you do documentation, make sure your visa is always ready and make sure that your passport is up to date because you can be a whistleblower for something that can trigger or something that can threaten the system. You know, there's some documentation that can threaten or can shake the government or can shake the system or can shake the statecraft to the core. So we need to be strategic when you are doing documentation. And this documentation, I know documentation changes always come because of documentation. So many countries has changed because things were documented because of maybe there was harassment, there was some violations, and certain kind of things. So documentation is the next frontier in changing the rogue regimes that we have. So documentation is a threat. It's a threat to rogue regimes. That's what I'm saying, and that's my part. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Okoth, for really sharing lots around this. I think this has really wrapped it up. We looked at why we should document. We looked at the steps and everything, and so on and so forth. And now we have been looking at the various next steps to be taken. I think all avenues can be explored, as you've said, and this is a frontier really which I believe must or can handicap wholesomely the regime in most of the times, because this is what they don't want to go into the people and so on and so forth. So I must believe that around our organizing, all need this, as you said, to ignite the outrage and also inform and so something, and most especially to instill the anger in people, or to cause the anger that they can find a reason really to act, maybe upon the magnitude of the number of violations, maybe upon the injuries which were created, the pain which was caused, and so on and so forth. I think it can also intrigue the the sympathy and the empathy of the people. At the end of the day, they can end up causing action. I must thank you for the time you've really committed today, and wholesomely taking on this conversation with you alone. I must not take it for granted to have you speak for over 2 hours. Thank you so much. I must say thank you to people tuned in, and I think we can call it a day and end it here. I wish you a good night to you all. Thank you so much. We meet next Friday.